You've heard about it raining cats and dogs, but what about blobs? Our next story is probably the weirdest weather report you've ever seen.
August 7th, 1994. A storm unlike any other descends upon the small city of Oakville, Washington. But hold up, this is no conventional rainstorm. Instead of pouring down raindrops, something else falls from the sky. Oakville resident Sonny Barcliffe takes these photos of what can only be described as blob rain. It's not water. The blobs appear to be comprised of a translucent, gelatinous substance. And in some photos, wait for it, they're accompanied by dead frogs. Can it get any stranger? Yes, it can. Just after the blob rain, Sonny's mother falls ill, prompting Sonny to send a sample of the blobs to Dr. Dave Little. And the lab findings only add to the mystery.
The specimen was like fresh gelatin. It was handed over to our laboratory and viewed under a microscope. But my laboratory was not equipped to ascertain the exact chemical nature.
This rain of blobs blankets a 20-square-mile area and falls a total of 6 times over 3 weeks. It falls on trees, grass, cars, and of course, people.
Within days, people were reporting vomiting, nausea, disorientation, trouble thinking. It was almost like they had the flu, but symptoms persisted for 2 to 3 months. And animals like cats and dogs that came into contact with the goo ended up getting sick and dying.
But further lab tests of the blobs do reveal a clue.
They found that the blobs contained cells with nuclei, saying that they were biological material, and found 2 very harmful types of bacteria. One is a food spoiler, and the other is found in the human gut.
So what could have caused such an inexplicable form of precipitation?
The Bible talks a lot about rains and storms. Sometimes it's a prophecy bringing something deeply negative. One Bible verse in particular, Ezekiel 38:22, talks about a plague of blood by torrents of rain and hail.
Another theory goes that this may have been the doing of a more earthly power.
Some thought that weather over the ocean had somehow stirred up enough living beings, like jellyfish, that were shot out of the water and sucked up into clouds where they were able to rain back down on residents. But no one's been able to figure out exactly what happened in Oakville.
Prior to the blob storm, Oakville residents noticed that there were military aircraft in their skies almost daily. Many began to wonder if the U.S. government had anything to do with what happened. The Air Force denied knowledge of the incident, so the townspeople had to explore other explanations. Our experts are here to help.
First, we turn to physicist Matthew Shadagas. Is it possible these are jellyfish brought to land by some freak event?
Oakville is not that far from the ocean. Maybe a waterspout could have picked up some material from the ocean and deposited it as precipitation.
Waterspouts are tornado-like vortices that occur over bodies of water. In theory, they can bring sea life like jellyfish ashore, but the evidence doesn't harmonize with that theory.
I don't believe anyone found any pieces of jellyfish, and that wouldn't explain why the particular cells and bacteria were found in the blobs.
Okay, now for a grosser theory, and it may explain the human gut bacteria that was found in the blobs. Could it be from an airplane restroom? Don't think it hasn't happened. As recently as 2021, a man standing in his garden in Windsor, England, was accidentally splattered in human waste as an airplane approached Heathrow Airport. But in Oakville, the evidence doesn't line up with that theory.
The FAA has strenuously denied that we had human waste that had been dropped from airplanes. Furthermore, airlines will have a bluish tint to the fluid used in the waste system.
Blue dye is routinely added to airplane toilets as a disinfectant, but no blue was seen in the Oakville blobs.
You saw white in the photos. So not only would it have been unethical, illegal, it's the wrong color.
So could this be a weather phenomenon? Not exactly, according to meteorologist Juan Hernandez, but he thinks it's related.
Before there was any research done on this substance, this was actually called star jelly. When any animal eats the spawn of a toad or a frog, there's always some sort of jelly that is attached to those eggs.
The next part of the puzzle is moisture. When enough rainfall combines with the jelly attached to the eggs, it expands.
There was about 1/4 of an inch of rain in this specific location. 1/4 of an inch of rain should be enough to allow for the jelly to expand.
So the theory is that animals ate frog eggs, vomited them up, and then the rain expanded them. Though that would explain the frogs, Shadagas isn't sold.
We have numerous witnesses, including credible witnesses like police officers from Oakville, saying that this rained down from the sky, hitting their windshields.
And Shadagas also notes that frogs don't explain the human connection found in the samples.
I would also like to know how animals manage to swallow human gut bacteria. And if that was the case, how do you get so many animals sick at the same time, multiple times in the same area?
Our verdict, unidentified living substance. We explore theories like jellyfish, star jelly, and airplane waste, but that doesn't explain what eyewitnesses saw coming directly out of the sky.
It's February 2022 in the village of Lynham in Wiltshire, England. Drivers trying to turn onto Route B4069 are greeted with a sign posted by police that says, "Road closed." Some ignore the sign, which they soon regret. One video taken of the scene focuses on a huge crack in the pavement, with the camera tilting up to reveal dramatic ripples buckling the road. The camera then slowly pans to a spot where the asphalt has bent up to create a huge bump. The next shot shows parts of the pavement jutting up at sharp angles like a skateboarding ramp, which is how some kids use it. Journalist Eric Grunhauser says many assume this must be the result of some seismic disaster.
It seems to undulate as though it was destroyed by the passing of something large and destructive, like earthquake activity.
But there's something missing from the earthquake theory: the quaking.
At the time, nobody reported feeling any sort of disturbance.
Or perhaps this road was a casualty of a secretive tunneling creature: human beings.
In nearby Corsham, there is an underground bunker complex that has some 10 miles of roads connecting various hospitals and other services that were all built in 1955 by the military for leaders, politicians, generals, and the like. But when that use never materialized, the bunker city essentially was abandoned.
The project to build that underground headquarters was codenamed Subterfuge. So you'll excuse us if we speculate that there may be other hidden secrets beneath the surface. Let's turn to our experts to see what they can dig up.
First, meteorologist Juan Hernandez examines if this could be the result of an earthquake.
England doesn't really lie on the edge of any plate tectonic. Usually, earthquakes happen on the edges of plate tectonics because of all that stored energy. There was a recorded earthquake in February of 2022. It was a 2.8 magnitude about 100 miles away in West Bromwich. Now, a 2.8 magnitude earthquake is not going to cause this much damage. We're probably looking at a 4, 5, or beyond for it to start causing damage to roads.
So if this wasn't caused by shaking Earth, could this be the work of giant worms? NASA geologist Dr. Bob Anderson investigates.
One of the ideas about the destruction of this road is that it was created by a worm called Microcatus rabi. These worms average about 6 feet in length, but the longest has been identified as 21 feet long. But they only average less than an inch in diameter. So even if that worm was digging a trough under this road, it could not cause this kind of destruction that we see in the video.
If there is no worm large enough to produce this degree of damage, then could the theory about secret tunnels like the military's Burlington bunker in Corsham hold some weight?
Here in this region, this mining and quarry was turned over to the government in England and made into a military base. But I think I can rule that one out because the length of it shows that it's almost a sinusoidal wave. It's a motion type of wave on the rock. And so you can see that if it was a roof collapse, you'd have a hole, a depression.
Not only that, but maps show that the location of the Burlington bunker doesn't overlap with where we see this ripped up road in Lynham. So, could this be a different type of natural disaster?
The main cause, in my opinion, is illustrated right here on this picture where you see the trees. A tree will always grow towards the sun. And if you go along areas where the land has been disturbed and you start seeing trees that are growing at an angle. That means that what you're having is a downhill movement of material like a landslide. The hillside is moving very, very slowly, and over time till it gets to a point where it breaks. And that downhill movement is called mass wasting.
Hernandez says the weather data shows this mass wasting, the movement of rock and soil by the force of gravity, is the most likely cause.
The UK is usually plagued with bad weather. It is known for cloudy conditions. It's known for rainfall. When you couple significant amount of rain, strong winds, and moist soils, you often have landslides that usually look like this, especially given the terrain that is very steep in this area.
Our verdict? This damage was almost certainly caused by a landslide, though we can't say for sure how it was triggered. And by the way, if you ever come across one yourself, experts say to evacuate the area immediately. You know what they don't suggest? Driving past all the turn back now signs.
It's June 25th, 2021, just north of Waverly, Kansas. Severe thunderstorms and flash flood warnings have been issued for the area, and Carl Hobie is on the hunt.
I am a storm chaser, and I always have a dash cam on my vehicle, so I was recording.
His video shows a line of cars slowly approaching a rainy intersection. Then, out of nowhere, a bolt of lightning strikes the Jeep right in front of Carl. Let's slow that down. It appears that two massive pulses blast straight through the vehicle, reaching as far as the grassy shoulder.
I just kind of froze. I just kind of sat there, and I'm wondering if these people are, dead or not.
Miraculously, the car is left in one piece. But what about the family inside?
Some of the effects that can be caused by a lightning strike include severe burns, cardiac arrest, strokes, and very often death. Yet somehow the passengers inside of this SUV survived not one, but 2 lightning strikes. So how is that possible?
And why did the lightning strike this car twice, no less? Could the people themselves have acted as a lightning rod?
Some people actually are more prone to being struck by lightning than your average person. One very famous example was the park ranger Roy Sullivan, or as he came to be known, the Spark Ranger.
Sullivan was hit by lightning an astounding 7 times. Once while he was driving in his car, and twice was when he was trying to outrun a storm, leading him to believe lightning was almost chasing him.
The question to ask is, why him?
Some speculate that having a high iron content in your blood can make you more susceptible to lightning, since metal is conductive. Could that be the case here?
We haven't been able to contact the people in the car hit by lightning, so we weren't able to hear their side of the story. Instead, we turned to our experts to see if people truly can be lightning rods.
We start by asking meteorologist Juan Hernandez what typically happens to people who survive lightning strikes.
Usually, when lightning strikes a person, it results in shoes getting blown off or jewelry getting soldered together. Now, a less common occurrence is what we call the Lichtenberg figure. Oftentimes, it looks like roots that have been implanted into the skin of the person.
But do some individuals actually attract lightning? Why was Ranger Roy such a target? Scientists don't believe his iron levels would make a difference, since the iron in blood is bonded inside hemoglobin molecules that don't conduct electricity. Hernandez suggests it's a matter of vocation and location.
He was a park ranger out in Shenandoah National Park, and that put him outdoors quite a bit. When you're outdoors, you're at risk of getting struck by lightning. Now, the park gets about 35 to 45 thunderstorms per year.
In addition to living in a very stormy region, Sullivan sometimes worked in an elevated fire tower, which is where he was officially struck for the first time while fleeing a lightning fire in the structure. And as for this family in the electric vehicle, in this case, Hernandez says the lightning was drawn to this vehicle instead of the taller trees around it for a simple reason: conductivity.
Wood is not as conductive as metal, so lightning is highly more likely to hit a car versus a wood tree in this case.
As for what happened to the family, the answer is one of those quirks of physics we love so much on this show.
A car is actually a safe place during a thunderstorm because it can act like what is known as a Faraday cage, where you can be safe from electric fields inside of the vehicle, even if the outside of the vehicle experiences a dramatically high electric field, such as from a lightning strike. Current travels around the exterior of the vehicle's conductive metal without going inside the car.
And Hernandez says you can see the exact moment the current is grounded.
If you pay attention, you'll notice that there's smoke that comes out off the right rear tire. That's the energy that gets transferred to the ground.
Our verdict? This lightning strike was a natural phenomenon, albeit a terrifying one. And as for the family inside, we can say they all survived with no major injuries, thanks to the Faraday cage effect. We just hope there aren't more spark rangers.
This story takes us to Ghana, specifically the highway that connects the industrial port of Tema with the energy hub Akosombo to the north. A man is driving along this well-traveled roadway when he stops to record this bizarre sight. A torrent of water appears to rain down from the sky, but only in one small spot.
We're literally looking at a waterfall in a very confined space, coming seemingly from the sky and targeting an area just off the highway in which this gentleman is filming, looking on with amazement.
Look closer. The driver pans his camera across the road to show the viewers it's not raining anywhere else. The pavement looks mostly dry, yet the downpour shows no sign of abating.
When people first saw this happening in real time and across the internet, once it went viral, there were a lot of different reactions.
One theory is that this hyper-local storm is just a freak of nature. We've all heard people say they saw it raining on one side of the street and not the other. Can it really happen? Consider this video from China in June 2018, where rain is falling on one side of the storm cloud but not the other. Or how about this torrential rain shaft in Gyeonggi-do, South Korea? What could be going on here? Could it be something called a microburst?
Microbursts are an extraordinary phenomenon. The microburst leaves a massive depression in the ground, oftentimes smashing buildings, trees. A lot of people attribute this to other sorts of phenomena, even a UFO landing.
And here's another crazy example. This U.S. Geographical Survey photo of a super isolated rainstorm in Colorado is not quite as small as the Ghana squall, but it's still pretty unbelievable.
Now, we know that water can play some strange tricks on the human eye. Look at this surreal footage of a phenomenon called laminar flow. And you can see from the video out of Ghana that, bizarrely, the water just keeps falling and falling, rushing out onto the ground. Could this all be just a hoax, an act of God, a mystery of science? We turn to our experts to see what they say about this extreme and extremely small deluge.
Atmospheric scientist Dr. Deanna Hentz examines if this downpour could be a true freak of nature.
When the view pans up, you can kind of almost see this domed appearance at the top of the water plume. It's pretty hard to distinguish from the clouds in the background because those clouds are white, but it doesn't really seem all that connected together.
And maybe it's a spout of water, and people were confused because the clouds are the same color, making it appear the water's coming down, not going up. Theoretical physicist Dr. Michio Kaku agrees. There's something fishy here.
You can't see any source of the water. Water just comes out of nowhere. In physics, there's something called the conservation of matter. Matter cannot be destroyed or created out of nothing, so the water had to come from someplace.
Kaku quickly figures it out, like you probably have too.
There's probably a pipe break of some sort. Water is under pressure. It shoots straight up, but then gravity and different kinds of oscillations take over, and it starts to flange out, and it becomes a spray as it comes back down again.
So this video from Ghana has an explanation. But what about the clips of these other small storms? Are they also too good to be true? At the very least, Hentz confirms that a microburst is a rare but quite real phenomenon.
A microburst is this very intense downdraft that kind of rushes out the bottom of a cloud. And sometimes that downdraft is dry and it hits the ground and spreads out and it looks like a bomb went off. But sometimes those very intense downdrafts do come down with rainfall.
And Hen says the videos of isolated rainstorms, like the one out of China, all have telltale signs that they are the real deal.
One big difference with the video that's from China is that you can see that the rain shaft that's coming out of the bottom of that cloud spans a good chunk of the river and the surrounding buildings. That's still very localized, but the scale of it is more in keeping with what you would see coming from a cloud.
Our verdict? It is clear that the deluge in Ghana is coming from a broken water pipe or some other source in the ground. But these other photos and videos show actual rare weather phenomena. They're examples of microstorms that you may be able to spot if you're in exactly the right place at the right time.